excited to have this conversation about breath work. I'm just waiting for us to go live on Instagram as well. But Beth is a breath work teacher and trainer, speaker, coach, NLP master practitioner, hypnotherapist, sound healer, Reiki therapist. Oh my God, the list keeps going. I am so impressed by this list. And I think that's incredible, the work that you're doing. I've been like binging on your videos. I have done some of your breathwork exercises on Spotify, and I have gotten some great benefits from it. So hello, and thank you so much for being here, Eva.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to share all this knowledge and experience I have about breathwork with you and your family. Just really grateful to be here.
Thank you. So tell us, you've got so many different tools and understanding of like this whole idea of the holistic view of ourselves. But why breath work? Why do you think breath work is so powerful?
All right. Do we have all day? Because then I might be able to scratch the surface. No? All right.
Let's just start with like 5 minutes.
Okay. I'll cover it top level, and then anything you want to dive into, just ask me. For me, it was because it was the only modality where I didn't believe that it would work. I didn't understand how it would work. And I didn't realistically even know what it was. I just kind of heard someone say breathwork. I saw that the classes were just sold out across the board. I was in some studios in America researching different forms of meditation and therapy, which is where I got all my certifications. And breathwork wasn't even on the list of the things that I wanted to learn, but I'm like, oh, why are these classes all sold out? So I felt this kind of nudge to just go sit one. And I went there, and first time it was this really strange experience, and I more or less just blacked out in the first 45 minutes, and I was like, well, that was a waste of time. But then I kept watching all these people just go in droves. The only classes in these studios were that were being sold out were breathwork. So I'm like, well, obviously it works. It didn't work for me, but I'm like, there must be something to this. So I remember walking to the studio, and I remember my mind just bouncing back and forth and being like, what? This is such a waste of time. Just go eat dinner, go to the gym, do anything. Don't do this. It's so boring. You're just going to go there and pass out. What's the point? And I get there, and there's this guy in a football jacket, and he's like saying, it's not called breathwork because it's lounge work. It's work, right? And I'm like, oh no, this is gonna be fun. Lie down, start the breathwork again, and then 15 minutes in, Angelica, my whole entire body starts to just change, and I can feel all these different sensations, and it almost felt like there was this moment where my whole body went and tightened into kind of an overstrung guitar string, so tight. And I remember, I felt like a lightning bolt or something just burst through my heart, and I was pinned to the floor, and I just started shaking and crying and laughing, and I couldn't even breathe. I was there's so much snot, from crying so hard. And the facilitator's next to me, almost trying to support me through it, but I'm like, oh, I'm good. I don't know what this is. I don't know what's happening, but this is amazing. Right? And I came out of that class, that second class I ever did. I was like, I don't know what happened. Didn't even believe anything was going to happen. If anything, I thought it was going to be a waste of my time. And I just knew in my heart, I'm like, oh, this is my purpose. This is what I have to do. This is what I have to give. I know where I'm going. I know there's nothing else now, nothing else. And that's when came back, started teaching breathwork, and then it turned into my certification modality. And I was like, this is the way, this is the process that will allow me to scale this as fast as possible with as much ease as possible. Let's teach the teachers, And
that's beautiful. Wow. I mean, I have so many questions. First of all, I think it's beautiful that you went and tried again. Can you imagine if you hadn't done it? I think so many people give up too quick in many things, right? And but I often think that, trying something is going more than once, because that first time, you're just kind of, experimenting and you're not sure. And I have experience, like you're saying, like, but maybe not to the extent that you're describing that, but I remember vividly the first time that I really kind of took a deep breath after my cancer diagnosis. Even without knowing anything about breath work, I had this realization of like, wow, I haven't taken a breath for years now. And I want you to talk a little bit about, the state of especially people trying to build their business, because you mentioned at the end, I know this is my mission, and helping, and I'm going to grow this with ease. The state of most of entrepreneurs these days, when it comes to building a business, and how do you see that the breath work helping them to actually go through life with ease, as opposed to being like that guitar string.
Yes, I love hearing that story as well. How, yeah, you just took a breath and then you realized, wow, like I've not done that in such a long time.
Yeah.
I think that really speaks to how fast the impacts of changing your breathing can actually be. So I want to speak to, like, for business owners, for entrepreneurs, 3 different forms of breathwork that's out there that really can allow you to expand and find that ease within your business. So, the first kind of breathwork that I'm going to speak into was the one I described just now. And that's kind of like the more popular breathwork that's trending at the moment, which is, people call it holotropic, they call it Wim Hof, what else? Rebirthing, transcendental. And all of this is all of these are trademark names for a specific kind of breathwork, which is derived from tummo breathing. It's like an ancient Tibetan meditation technique. But people have put their own spin on it, including myself, right? And what it does is that it depletes your body of carbon dioxide through fast, rapid breathing. So you can turn off your prefrontal cortex and then tap into your limbic system, or your emotions, your repressed memories, suppressed memories. And the beauty of this is, there's not a lot of people know, but you can't actually think and feel at the same time. Yeah. Kind of seems like you can, because you're almost like, oh, well, of course I'm thinking and feeling, but it's like, actually, no, there's a switching station in your brain that switches between thought and feeling, which is why often in arguments, the man will start arguing, like, and be like, oh, well, no, the woman will be like, oh, I have this problem, and the man will be like, oh, well, here's the solution, and she's like, I'm just trying to feel. And he's like, yeah, but I think this is a great idea, just do this. Right, that's a huge generalization, but the point is, like, often we get stuck in our thinking brain because we're thinking so much that we can't feel our body. And if you can't feel your body, well, then how do you know what you want, and how do you know where you want to go? And what happens when all that stress builds up and all your emotions build up, and you're still just trying to think your way out of it, but you can't actually see the forest through the trees because you can't solve the problem with the level of thinking that created the problem. You actually have to feel to go beyond that, and it allows you to rise to a different level of consciousness, to access lateral thinking, so you can see solutions that you normally wouldn't be able to from within that problem that you've thought into existence. So that's kind of like step 1. It's like that kind of breathwork can just purge your nervous system and reset your entire vagus nerve, so you can come from a place of deep relaxation. When you do that, then you can see clearer and you can actually go for what you want. Now,
I think I love that, because I would say that, to add to that, I would say we have developed a habit to not feel, right? It's become like now our default habit, because there's so much information out there that we have been so disconnected from feeling and from our bodies. I mean, I know that because I felt that too. When I got sick, that people, exactly, they keep in this loop, but I've got to know more to solve this problem. I've got to get more information to solve this problem. And the more you do that, the less disconnected you get from actually feeling anything.
Yeah, absolutely. And what I've found, which is so ironic, is, I burned out through my first business that I built. I built it to six figures, and it was so beautiful, and the impact it had on people. Like, someone got a photo from our event tattooed on their arm. Like, it was so, yeah, so beautiful. But I was just so exhausted from like running on the hedonic treadmill, from not resting, not listening to my body, that I just kind of gave 80% of that business away. I'm a silent partner now, but I just couldn't because it was like my body, my feeling, my nervous system was dead. It was drained. It had nothing left to give. And so I love hearing what you've spoken into. Whereas now with my new business, it's like the priority is every Thursday, do nothing. Every weekend, do nothing. Like, I remember with one of my first mentors, I remember messaging him and just being like, oh, I'm really stressed, da 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 da. And he was like, just go on a holiday. And I was like, no, I can't. I need to, focus on the sales system. I haven't implemented the email sequence. I haven't, written the copy for. He's like, no. And he said, quite brutally, and I'm so grateful that he said this. He's like, the reason that you're half-assing your business right now is because you're half-assing your health. Like, and it really hit me. I'm like, oh, no, he's right. And after that, I just went on a holiday, and of course I came back, and then immediately made a sale. Like, not from that energy of like, that like, but from that place of just magnetism of like, oh yeah, my life is so great. Like, and let me listen and be present to this person on the other end of the call and actually hear what's going on for them, so I can meet them where they're at instead of meeting them where I think they should be and trying to pull them across the line. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. And I think that what people don't realize, it doesn't matter how much money you earn, if you're not looking after your health, it gets to a point that you are going to resent it all. Because I would always say that a surviving body, a body that is struggling, a body that is not running at its full capacity, cannot handle anything else mentally, emotionally. And I think that unfortunately, that's the state of most people these days. And I stop asking myself the question of like, why do we wait, right, for that burnout or for that stage 3 factor? Like I did, right? Why do we wait? Because there's so much burnout these days, which is like putting people sometimes out for life, right? Because they've burned themselves out so much. And I feel that unfortunately we are human beings, that we are always going to seek comfort. We're always going to seek what we know as opposed to seeking the uncomfortable, right? And I think, in a society that we live these days, it's actually quite uncomfortable to say no, right? To say no for the hustle, no for the, I'm not going to do things because, people think that I should be doing that or should be achieving that, right? Because people don't even know what they want. They think they want what others have because they're so disconnected from who they are, that, this sometimes doesn't even come from themselves.
Yeah, 100%. It's. I mean, there's a couple of things there. It's so easy to take on everybody else's opinion and thoughts and beliefs and ideas, because if you can't listen to the feedback in your body because you're so fixated on the race and to the outcome and the end goal, then you end up getting to the end goal and then it's just empty. Like, I think that's the worst feeling in the world. At least when you're going towards something, it's inherently meaningful because you're going somewhere, at least to progressing. The worst feeling is when you get to that end goal, you get to, whatever the metric is that you think you want, and you've lost yourself along the way. And you're like, oh, I've been working for, a year, 2 years, 10 years just for this. And everyone's celebrating you and congratulating you, but you're just like, well, what's next? And then you're like, is this really my life? Like, I think that's the worst feeling in the world. And I think there is that kind of hustle culture or bro entrepreneurism, which is kind of dying out at the moment, which is awesome. Like, it's going on this phase now where it's trending down. But it is like, it's this real kind of like if you're not working on your business 24/7, what are you doing with your life? Like, right? Like, it's hectic, and it's shame and it's pain motivation. and it will only get you so far. Like, you will probably throw spaghetti at the wall in your business, and some of it will stick and the rest of it will just fall down. And by the end of it, you just have this huge mess of spaghetti to clean up and a shot nervous system. And I think one of the obstacles for people who start in breathwork is they think, well, I don't have time to get 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗓, that you sampled some of my breathwork on the playlist, because actually, like, for me personally, because I do have so much on my plate. Like, I've got my 6-figure business, I'm a silent partner in the other one. I've also got like team and all over the world, and it's like there's so much going on. So I only actually do probably about 6 minutes of breathwork every day, and then I'm just constantly monitoring how I'm breathing. And that's where those other 2 layers come in. It's like the foundational breathwork is, well, how are you breathing in everyday life? Are you actually even taking a breath? Are you using your chest? Are you using your belly? Is your mouth open? And then the second layer, well, if you've got 2 minutes before a meeting and you're just so tired and you're exhausted, well, you can spend those 2 minutes changing the pattern of your breath to, let's say, box breathing, 4 in, 4 out, hold, 4 out, hold again, and come into that deep sense of clarity. And that's enough to actually completely shift your day.
Yeah. It's the same thing, right? Like, what's the point in meditating every day if you're going to get out there and being angry with everyone, right?
Yeah.
The breath work is the same thing, right? If you're only doing 6 minutes breath work and then you're just holding on your breath for the rest of the day, it's not going to make a difference, right? But of course, as you start doing the breath work for 6 minutes, you start becoming more conscious about your breath during the day, because your body knows what it is like to breathe properly.
Yeah, it's like reprogramming your entire system, like reconditioning it. And I was just speaking to some of our level 2 students actually, and we were talking about how, the atmosphere of the world used to be like way higher in carbon dioxide, but because of all the, the gases that have been released, carbon dioxide levels are lowering, and we actually need about 4.5% within us of carbon dioxide to be able to metabolize oxygen at its most efficient rate. And what's happening is people are breathing faster and faster in their everyday life, and they're offloading so much carbon dioxide that they're not able to utilize the oxygen that's in their body. And then there's impacts like fatigue, like mental fatigue, insomnia, can't sleep, 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗓𝗓, all kinds of different breathing disorders that people are almost just medicating them, thinking that this is going to fix it. But I'm like, actually, if you just increase the level of carbon dioxide inside your lungs, your energy is going to improve. You'll be able to increase your VO2 max, which is the amount of oxygen you can metabolize into ATP or energy per minute, your fitness, your stamina, your endurance, your headaches, like so many different things. But it's just not common knowledge yet, and there's not enough like strong peer-reviewed research. But I mean, their solution to that is try it and see what happens.
And the crazy thing is that it's free, right? Like,
free.
I know, it's crazy. I mean, and to add to the list of diseases, I want to add, cancer. A cancer cell is a cell that doesn't need oxygen, right? So it's a cancer that has gone rogue. It's a cell that has gone rogue, and it's surviving out of other healthy cells. So, once I started reading about, cancer and how I was going to heal myself and my body, I realized that a lot of that creation inside my body, of that environment where I allow the cancer to grow, was also because I didn't take deep breaths. I know this sounds like crazy, but once you don't have enough oxygen in your body, you are starting to create an acidic environment, which you start brewing all sorts of different diseases, right?
Yeah, it's not crazy at all. Thank you so much for having the courage to speak into this on your own journey. I feel like there's so much projection out there around, like, when you actually own what you've been able to do for yourself, because you trusting your own body is like you going against the dominant like system out there, which says, no, you can't listen to yourself. Like, and it's almost disempowering. And that being said, I love the medical system. I think it's amazing, when prevention doesn't work. And I also feel like there's so much power in someone's own personal journey and listening to what's right for them. And there's something I wanted to speak to when you said that. It's left me for now, but
yeah, no, that's So I actually cut you off. You spoke about the first breath work that would help entrepreneurs and people that are building their business, and you were going to mention another couple. If you want to kind of go back to that, yes,
Oh,
yes, yes.
yeah, amazing. Okay, so people in business. So I'm going to keep it super simple because I don't want to overwhelm everyone with too much information. The first one I'm going to say is one of the biggest, I'd say, shadows in business and coaching is this thing called imposter syndrome. You know what that is, right? Like people think, oh yeah, the problem is that I don't have enough team. I don't have enough, I don't know what it is, knowledge. I don't have enough something. But what's really playing out underneath in the unconscious is actually just this fear that what you have isn't good enough, or you don't know how to sell to someone, or you're not magnetic for some interesting, flavor of just not feeling good enough for what you do or what you're putting out there, despite the fact that you've got 20, 30, 40, 50 years experience, and you've probably already got a bunch of different forms of knowledge that other people just don't have, right? And this is where this breathwork can become so powerful, because when you're going to speak on a stage, or when you're going to do a podcast like this, or before a sales conversation, or in any moment where you feel those doubts or that freeze in your nervous system, you can actually activate your parasympathetic nervous system immediately. And what that will do is lower your stress levels, reduce the constriction in your carotid arteries, which cause your brain to go bah, and just think of a million things at once. And it's just this. You take a breath in through the nose into your belly. You really focus on your belly here, because if it's chest, it's going to increase your sympathetic nervous system activation. And then when you exhale out through the mouth, you just keep extending it. Long, slow, and longer than the inhalation. The purpose of this is that you immediately go into that rest and digest. And when you're in that side of your autonomic nervous system, you're creative, intuitive, you're thinking in metaphors, you're able to problem solve with ideas that are actually quite disconnected and separate inside of your logical brain.
And you're out of flight or fight, right? Like you're out of that state of freeze that you mentioned that stops people from taking action in any area of their lives that they want to, and they can keep giving themselves that excuse of I don't have this, don't have that, or they can use the breath.
Yeah, and people are so afraid of looking awkward, or they're afraid of pausing, or they're afraid of not looking like they know what they're going to say next. But my thing is, no, actually sit in that quiet. If you're freaking out on a podcast or on stage or on a sales conversation that's really high pressure, high ticket, whatever, actually be willing to just breathe out and just sit there and then see what happens and comes in. Often that's when the answers actually come to you. And you might be, let's say, leading someone down a sales conversation, and then you realize I'm just talking, what am I doing? I'm just talking to escape an uncomfortable emotion right now. Why am I here, and why is he here? Why is she here? And then you actually can just speak into it. Oh my God, I realize I've actually missed something. You're not here because you want to grow your business. You're here because you actually want to feed your family, don't you? And there's a vision that you haven't even spoken into yet. I can hear it, even if you haven't said it yet. What is it? Tell me, right? There's all these downloads that come through your intuition, and you're willing to sit in that silence, and you're willing to be, like you said, out of that freeze response, in that deep relaxation. And you can speak to what that person is thinking or feeling, even if they can't articulate it yet.
I love that, because especially when you're talking about sales calls, when people come into a sales calls, they are erratic themselves because they're busy, right? And if they don't see you as that grounding place, if your energy is also erratic and you're your thoughts are all over the place, then how are you going to be able to build that trust and and that grounding place, because I think, as a coach and as a leader, it doesn't mean that you need to know everything, but that person is looking for um, a guidance and for a light, or for things that they don't know as yet. And I think, a lot of it in this world is just looking for that groundedness that most people, are finding very difficult to connect with.
Yeah, I love that you spoke to that. Yeah, a lot of the time they come to the calls and they're stressed. They've got a problem and they're also kind of afraid that they're going to offend you. Like, they're afraid that they'll let themselves down. They're afraid that they can't afford it and they'll feel really embarrassed, right? So all they're really seeking on the call is, one, can you help me? Two, can you hold me? Like this, the moment, again, the sphere of business has changed. It's no longer about who's got the most polished marketing, who's got the most followers. Everyone knows that it can all be bought now. Everyone's been burned by so many different companies. They just want to know that you're a human being and that you can help them and that you can hold them.
Yeah, and that you care, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
So tell us a success story of one of your, hundreds and thousands of clients. I'd love to hear, so people can really picture how you can help them.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that invitation. I'll do a couple. I'll do one around health first, because I think that's just like what you were saying before, when you're like, it's crazy. I'm like, well, yes, it is actually, but it's real. So a couple of things. There was one woman who came to a breathwork of mine, and she had PTSD and she had all kinds of back pain and other problems from the military. Did one breathwork, and she said throughout the breathwork her whole body went numb. And then at the end of it, she stood up and she was like, there's no more pain. Like, wild. Okay, another one.
That gives me goosebumps, sorry.
Yeah. No,
wow, that's incredible.
It's great. It's great. Like, actually, even I think it's crazy, and I know everything about breathwork.
Yeah.
And another one who's coming through my training right now, she used to have asthma-induced, exercise-induced asthma, which meant that when she exercised, by the end of it, she'd be like, like you feel like you can't take a breath. And she's been doing the reduced breathing exercises for like 21 days. She just said it's gone. And if it's interesting, if you Google, how do I cure asthma? Like, Google will say, yeah, there is no cure. There is only treatment through bronchodilators. But, well, she did.
Yeah.
Right? So there's that. Another cool one was one woman called Renee. Again, one breathwork. And these, see, I don't talk about this very often because it creates an expectation in people. But I do like to talk about it in interviews like these, because it just drives home that breathwork is scientific and it's spiritual, and you really can't quantify what's going to happen, but it's just insane what does happen. So this woman did one breathwork online with me in a group session. She had been on medication for chronic pain disease, like for I don't even know how long. At the end of it, she messages me in the chat. She's like, "Oh my god, that was crazy! I had so much phlegm come up, like mucus, and like quite common with cleansing reaction." She's like, "It's just so much phlegm," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, cool. That's a purge. That makes sense." And the next day, she messages me and she's like, "Bert, there's no pain," and she just went off medication immediately.
That's insane. Like,
insane.
I love what you said about, like, you don't want to, you don't like talking too much, not to create expectations. I think that we live in a world that, and I lived through that when I was diagnosed with stage 3 back cancer. You go into the conventional medicine, you get into this kind of conveyor belt. It's like you do surgery, you do chemo, and that's all we can offer you here. And, I went on to, okay, I'm going to do that, but I'm also going to do my homework, and I'm always also going to find ways to support my body through that. And that's when I started my journey, right? And for me, it was very important to have that openness of thinking and believing that I could do it. Right? And I was able to finish 12 sessions of chemo feeling stronger than I started. Whilst the doctors told me, you just see what you can do. It's going to be really tough. And I was like, nah, I'm not going to be that person. So I think, and we both have worked with people. I think that I always believe that anything is possible because I can see that you believe anything is possible for your clients.
Oh, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So the person that comes in, to your breath work practice, just having that openness in your heart to think, I truly have tried everything, or I'm sick to taking this medication, or I'm sick to having this asthma, or whatever it is. I'm opening myself to a different, a different method here, a different idea, a different feeling. I think that is where the healing is.
Yeah, I love that. Yes, you're right. It's like who we are, the energy of what we believe. People walk into our space and then they can borrow belief. And I think that's what I did with my mentors. I just let them install faith in me. They told me I was a high achiever. They told me that, all these amazing things about me. And to be honest, I reflect back on that person. I'm like, I don't think she was a high achiever. I was very lazy, but I believed them. And then I almost mirrored that back. I was like, yeah, I am a high achiever. And now I am, because I just took it on. And I think something that comes into my space is, if you come to me, that I will never make what you believe wrong. I will only elevate and empower you to believe that you're exactly where you need to be. And I think someone that came through my training recently that really inspired me was a woman, and she was actually skipping meals and could eat. That's how like dire her financial situation was. And we worked out a beautiful option for her so she could go on an extended payment plan and do the training. And she fully believed, and she borrowed my belief. I actually said the same thing to her. I'm like, you're a high achiever, you can do this. Like, you understand that if you believe, then you can make it happen. And I tuned into her own energetics, and then I supported this woman. And then I think within 8 weeks, she'd made like $2.5 grand through the container. She is just so happy now. She's able to obviously feed her children. Like, there's stories like that, almost make me weep, because I'm like, all it took was for you to actually believe in who you are. And you've always had it in you. I didn't do anything. I just kind of helped you remember through breathwork and through our work together. And another one.
That is so beautiful. And I think so many people are in that place in the world, right? Thinking like, I can't afford to do that. I know I'm working in a job that I hate, but I can't afford to, I would love to be a breathwork teacher, but I can't afford to pay. But it's like, okay, well, that work is slowly creating disease inside of you when you know that, because you were suffering, the signs of it. And I think that, when you are there to take that first step and go, I'm going to believe in myself. And you are somewhat, like you say, you're borrowing somebody else's belief, but the commitment with, I'm going to do this with time and money is also important. Because, when I look back at my own journey, if everybody had just, saved me like that, just made me, just made me feel stronger than I start, like the chemo. They don't have to do anything. You just sit there in the sofa, and when you finish chemo, you're just gonna feel stronger than you started. Nobody values that. Like who, like the reading the books, the journey, they're sitting in meditation and thinking like, this is not doing anything. They're doing my yoga practice and going like, oh my God, I can't even barely stand on all fours. All that is what made me stronger than I started, and I think the commitment, when people think, like the coaching, it's like, oh, no, it's too much money, or I can't do this, I can't do that. But can you afford to stay where you are? And I think that is the most important question. For me, I knew that I was prepared to do whatever it took to create health again. And it sounds like this lady, your client, was as well.
Exactly. And I had the same feeling. Yeah. Could I afford to stay where I was before I started this mission? It's like, no, this is kind of choiceless for me. I have to do this, because I can't stay where I am. And I think it's important as well to speak into, like, there's away from motivation, which is I need to get away from where I am. And there's also inspiration motivation, like what's pulling me forward. And I think it's really scary sometimes to own like the bigness of what we're here for. but you have to do it because otherwise, yeah, you just stagnate. And then I think that it's even worse to be in a position where you're complacent and you kind of can't feel anything because, you know, it's good like this, like, oh, it's good, but it's like you're bored. And I think people will do anything to escape boredom, which is why like addiction, you know, drugs, alcohol, like addictions are rife because people are bored because we live in a culture and a time where if you're big and you're loud, you're arrogant, whatever. But the reality is, unless you are actually seeing the vision that you have for your life and your business and where you really want to go and being willing to step into it, despite the imposter syndrome, despite the projections from everybody else, despite your fears, then you just kind of end up bored. And that is like the most horrible place to be.
That resonates with me so much. Before I was diagnosed with cancer, I was, 38, and I had, my husband. He's an amazing man. We've been married for 21 years. We have always been very happy, 2 kids, had a house, has a career, had everything. And I felt that boredom. And I felt that feeling of like, okay, well, I left my home country, Brazil, because I didn't want to get married and have kids and do what every woman did. And yet I'm here at the time I was living in New Zealand, and I've lived in different countries. I've traveled the world. I've done whatever I wanted. And I'm married now with kids. I'm happy, with what I have built, but deep inside, I feel empty. And I just completely suppressed those feelings and emotion, which is quite easy for me because I had developed quite a good habit to doing that for a very long time. And I just kept going, to work every day until I got sick. But, and when I look back, I would say that was like the first calling, going like, this is not what you're meant to do. But I was accepting, it was good. Right? It was good, like just stay where you are, and this is it, because there was no, like you said, there was no progression, like I feel that, and I think Tony Robbins always says that like happiness equals the progression. If you're not progressing, you're not happy. Like when you were bored, and at the time I would say my drug was binging drinking alcohol, and in our society, so acceptable to do that, right? Like, it doesn't matter how much units you drink, they'll be like, oh yeah, it's fine, don't worry, you're only an alcoholic if you're just homeless on the street. Not really. Like that's the Western culture, right? So I use that as my drug.
Yeah, to escape that feeling.
Yeah, and so many people are living in that place of acceptance, and like you said, it takes that first step, going, I don't, I've had enough. I know I'm meant to do more. I know I want to do more, right? And it's just doing.
Just the doing. I love that. Yeah, it's like, I also love that piece that you said around society wires us to seek comfort instead of discomfort. And there was another bit you added about, I don't know, it's left me again, but yeah, comfort and the discomfort, right?
And it's everywhere. It's social media scrolling. At the time, I wasn't on social media. Social media scrolling, eating too much sugar, junk food, or whatever. It's everywhere, right? And this is why obesity is such a big problem, because it is a drug, and it's killing us, right? Alcohol. We're not even talking about illegal things here.
Yeah, we're just talking about stuff.
We're just touching
in the supermarket, but it's actually. I read this phrase in a book, and it gave me shivers. It said, "Society tolerates addiction because it keeps us in our place." It's like, people like drunk people on the streets, or like, why is that not like actually controlled when our government is so rich and wealthy and abundant that they could really tackle that if it really tried, right? But it doesn't, and it's like, why? Because it understands that that's the price for keeping people in their place, in their roles, in their conformity, in jobs that they hate, in the hustle culture. People can justify it because they get to tap off for the weekend, go get wasted, lose themselves, and then come back and do the same thing again, waiting until Friday. And without that, if people didn't have that, it's like society, they say, well then it would fall apart because you'd actually be like, wait, this is all I'm doing now, just the job that I hate, and I don't get to kick off, I don't get to rebel, I don't get to escape. Well, I don't want to do this then. That's not what I signed up for, right? But I think what you and I have done, and what so many people who are listening have done, is like we've actually engineered a life now where we're just always in alignment, always in what we want to do. We only do what we want to do. We get paid to be ourselves. We're just speaking honestly about our authentic journey. And so that's where that pull of the addictions, it doesn't, I still love sugar. I'm not going to lie about that. I've got like 8 chocolate bars in my fridge. But but the pull, right? Like that impulsive, you can't control it. What's wrong with me? Why can't I stop? That is done. That is gone, because there's something that's always calling me higher, always more meaningful, always more powerful. And
I love what you said, Ed, and I'm curious to know what your thoughts are around. I think this new generation have a lot more awareness, and I'm 44, so like when I say new generation, people that are 20s, like in my time, it's like, especially in Brazil, it's like there is no choice. You get a job, so as you're studying your degree, that's how it is. We didn't have this kind of first world problem thinking like, should I go traveling? There was none of that. It's just like, even when you were mid-class, like you just needed to get on with life. But I'm also finding that, when you scroll on social media, there is so much talks around, trauma, emotional healing, and a lot of, mental health stuff, and which is very, very, of course, very serious and very important. But, where it is the fine line, right? Like of, just staying in a place of like, not having any resilience, towards achieving a goal, and not, like, which is, you can call it the hustle, or, it doesn't have to be that way. And, and of course, at the same time, searching and working towards building a life that is true to yourself. Does that make sense? Like, where it is the fine line, because we do, to build a life that you want to create, there will be some hard days, right? There will be some things that you're going to do that you don't want to do, like at a particular time, all of those things. And I think that's why, tools like the breath work, for me, what it gives to me is just, it always brings my body back into balance.
So I think what you're speaking to, and just correct me if I'm wrong, is it's like, where do we find that line between like pushing and challenging ourselves and actually recovering and allowing ourselves deep rest?
Yeah.
And how does the breath come into play around that? Is that
Yeah.
So I think what I see with people who are burnt out from hustle is that they think they need to challenge themselves less. Often that's not the case. Often it's actually they just need to create way more routine pockets of recovery. If they do that, they just won't burn out, and they still get that like, comfort and discomfort, and that like fun kind of adventure and adrenaline of like really pushing and challenging yourself. The fun phrase of like, I need to burn it all down, which is like an entrepreneurial like kind of buzzword now, go burn it all down, is actually just born of that person just never actually focusing on their recovery, never actually doing the breath work, eating the right food, allowing enough sleep, making time for connection. So I think with respect to your question, it's about treating your recovery with the same significance and importance that you do, let's say, a sales event or a sales call. You have to give it that much significance, because why would you not actually, when it's the most powerful piece of your business? Like, if you're the director, if you're the founder, the CEO, and you fall apart, everything kind of falls apart, unless you're like, let's say, 7 figures, and you've got all this other team that can kind of hold it for you because you've trained them to be mini yous. But a lot of us are
but even so, right? Like, just think about it. So, like, let's say if you burn out and that costs, like, I was out of work for the whole year. Like, would your business survive if you just, if you couldn't work for the whole year?
for a whole year, exactly. And so for me, it's like when I schedule my times, when I schedule my calendar, I'm scheduling like a holiday every quarter, a weekend off every month, a 3 days off every week, and those are sacred. It doesn't matter what is on during those times. I'm like, no, I treat them like a sales event. Like, no, I can't do this speaking gig that I really want to do on a Thursday. No, I can't, or I don't want to. Not that I can't. I don't want to do this like amazing event that I've been offered on this day, because my rest is like the most important thing. And when I say rest, I really mean like entrepreneurial rest. There's a difference between like normal rest and entrepreneurial rest. Normal rest, it doesn't matter if you're kind of like still, doing a bit here and there. But entrepreneurial rest is like, don't make content, don't go on social media, don't respond to that sales call, don't like go and hustle, don't like meet people and then prospect them. Like, it's actually like deep. You have to stop thinking about your business. If any visions or downloads come through, awesome, you can write it down quickly. Don't work on them, don't create a plan, don't create a strategy. It has to be deep rest. And in those times, you can actually hear and feel and monitor what your breath is doing. Like, how are you actually breathing? Have you measured it before? Like, how many breaths have you got per minute? Because if you're breathing over 12 breaths per minute, you're over breathing and you're creating oxidative stress and you're putting yourself into a fight or flight experience. So can you just slow it down throughout the day again and again, just like you said, 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗢𝗏, to condition your body into a different operating system that happens automatically where you breathe slow? And in those times, like, so my optimal, which I don't actually do, but my optimal at the moment would be to do a breath work, let's say once a week. Typically I'll do it maybe like a long one once a month, right? But the piece is like, make time for that. So you've got that time to release, to purge, to feel your connection to oneness, to whatever you want to call it, God, the universe, whatever deity or spirit guide it is that you have. Like, you need to connect to that, because that is what when you said, believing anything is possible, that's that quantum field or that quantum energy is the vast potential that we get to create from. If you want to believe anything is possible, you have to feel it. You can't just talk about it. You can't just pretend that it's there and tell yourself that story. You have to feel it. And that's what I love about those breathwork journeys. Like, once a month, I actually re-anchor and be like, oh my God, I forgot about my ancestry. I forgot about the guides that have been telling me that this is what I'm here for. And
I love that.
yeah, it's
I love that.
magic. You can create anything.
Yeah, I mean, the more we stay on the doing and not on the feeling, the less connected you are from this energy, right? And doing that, if you schedule in your calendar, I love that. That will connect you again with the endless possibilities. And it's so easy to get disconnected from that if you just keep, running around and running and running and running around.
So important, before I forget, yes, I actually schedule and I have it on my to-do list every day to do breath work. So I get the dopamine rush of ticking it and being like, yay, I did it. Right? Like, that's what I mean. It's as important as every other business activity. Do my breath work, tick. And I do that every single time before I start the day, because then what immediately drops in is I've got like hundreds of open loops. I have so many tasks that are open right now. And I have to choose the ones that are most important, that will support people and support myself to move forward. And so when I'm in that breath work and that meditation, I'm like, well, what would make today great? And then it drops in, and I'm like, oh. And sometimes it's as simple as you need to go to bed early.
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah, it might be like, oh, you haven't followed up this person. And I'm like, well, does that matter? It's like, yes, okay, okay.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, beautiful. Wow, that's amazing. So how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, so on Facebook, I'm 𝗪𝗓𝗏10. On Instagram, I'm 𝗪𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. If you just want to message me, we can send you our free breathwork playlist on Spotify, or 𝗕𝗢𝗢𝗏𝗏 will probably share it with you. Or if you want to get like a longer journey, we do offer free journeys, and we can send a recording of one of those to you as well, so you can experience what I was talking about, connecting to the divine, to your intuition. Other than that, I think I'm on TikTok as well. But definitely like get in touch via my socials. That's where I'm most active. And then we can share details about upcoming training as well with you. Or we've also got like an automated kind of breathwork journey that you can start if you're someone who's like, oh, I'm just really, really new and I want to get a taste.
Amazing, amazing. And so the coaching that you offer is group coaching, and but also do you also offer one-to-one?
I do. I mostly focus on the group coaching, but from time to time, I will take a one-on-one if I'm really, really inspired, and it would be fun to do so.
Amazing, amazing, awesome. So I'll add all the details, and please connect with the work that she's doing is amazing, and I know it's life changing. Breathwork has been, in the world for thousands and thousands of years. This is not a new, if you have a scientific mind, you rest assured there will be enough science behind to prove that this works, and it's very, very powerful, and it's life changing.
Oh my gosh, yes. And if you need any of that evidence, just tell me. I have all the studies from Harvard, from Stanford, from even my own local city, Mater Hospital. Like, there's so many different studies out there and research that actually demonstrates the benefits of breath work. So for those of you that are science minded, like, I can literally just send that information to you, and I'd be happy to do that.
Amazing. Thank you so much, for your time.
Thank you for having me. I know we went a little bit over, but it was so much fun.